Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the jar. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mental Health Today. I'm your host, Ken Stearns, and another beautiful episode set up. I'm pretty excited. There's quite often some times when I get to meet a guest and have a pre-chat, and really I've picked the guest out for a few things. And my next guest, Julian, and I were sitting on the phone trying to figure out which guest he was that I picked out for all the cool stuff he was doing. And then there was one piece in there where I realized, this is why I really wanted to talk to Julian. And there's a couple things in there, but I think one was one of somebody I really look up to and has been a companion on many car rides and many tough moments in my life. Jim Rohn, motivational speaker, just an excellent storyteller and really great at, helping you focus on your own life and how to change your life around. Because through his own story, he had a couple of good chances to change his life, and he's just got an amazing story. And the other one was that life insurance, nearly cost Julian his life. And so I was like, holy cow, I was a life insurance person for 30 years. I want to hear that story. And that was about the only story we didn't get to touch on in the green room and to hear him out. So I'm excited to hear a little bit of that. Although I promised him or asked him to spend a lot of time focusing on, what he's doing today, because he's done a lot from Hollywood stuff, being an agent in Hollywood, working with some pretty cool stars, etc. Kickboxing guy, some really interesting stuff. But there's something on your website that I really did like. There's a couple things on there, and I was playing around, and it's something I wouldn't normally do. But I love your mission, right? To be a catalyst to aspiring, emerging, and established leaders, across the U.S. and internationally. And it's that other thing you've got where you're talking about, what's happening in business, that culture is changing. So I'm convinced that our culture is changing. So should how we develop ourselves, employees, and our business. And that really resonated with me as well. I got to say, Julian, that's a great quote. Don't change it. Because I really do believe it. And I saw it in so many big organizations, that culturally where they are at, and then how they build leaders up and move people around there's a disconnect. And, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so if you don't have your culture down, you can have all the plans you want. You're not going to get there, and it'll be extremely frustrating. Yes. But, look, that's not all the stuff you're doing. Turning knowledge into instinct is really, and that's also just kind of what we talked about in a way, right? Or experience, life experience, and becoming instinctual around it. Yeah. Julian, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time out to be a guest.
Thank you, Ken, for having me. It's a pleasure. I love the intro. That's fun. I loved your video as well. That's really a great testament to who you are. So I had a lot of fun watching that. But the knowledge and instinct is from boxing. So just so you know, kickboxing. When you if you put it in perspective, if you have to think about next move, you're already hit by
you're already looking at the ceiling.
Right. So your goal is to be instinctive and not to have something in your head that you have to think twice about. So you have to be intentional to learn something to the point where you don't have to know it anymore. It's just as part of you. And so that's the first lesson I learned when I first stepped into the ring to learn how to fight. I already learned what a block was and what a kick was and what a punch was, but it didn't come out instinctively until automatically became muscle memory. So that's where that comes from. So if we can get leaders to kind of become more instinctive versus just going to seminars and taking classes and going back and acting the same way, then you have a true change and you have a true fighter for the business. And so that's my focus on that level.
Okay, give me a little backstory. This is the insurance side. Let's do a little bit of the mental health part. Then I want to get straight to what you're doing now. Tell me about the life. Tell me about what happened. So you left Hollywood, or you did the kickboxing. You ended up in Hollywood. Somehow you got like, I don't know who could convince you. I love that whoever the leader was that convinced you to join life insurance. I love that person.
Well,
Amazing.
interesting enough, my family was very heavily involved in insurance. My uncle was one of the top African American life insurance agents in the country, and then my stepfather was a very successful life insurance agent as well. And when I got audited and after marriage and having a fitness business, I was like, what do I do? And again, like I was sharing before we went live, I didn't have a man in my life. I was homeless at 16, lived in the streets. I was, and I made myself successful in Hollywood because I was in Hollywood and my cousin was a rapper. I knew a lot of famous people. So getting into that industry wasn't hard. It was just almost like it was natural because of the environment in which I was in.
Okay.
It wasn't functional. It was very dysfunctional.
Yes. Okay. Which is good for you. That was you at the time, right? You came out of dysfunction. You came out of you thrived. You were good in that tank.
Yeah, I was 100%. And I needed it for my own ego and survival. I needed that attention because I never got it as a child. So I leaned into the fitness industry after wanting to get out of the entertainment industry. And it did just as well. I did extremely well in that business. But after a lot of changes and getting married, there seemed to be I had to find something else to do. I didn't know what to do. I could have opened another gym. I could have done something like that. But when you first get married and half of your relationships are built off of opposite sex and they're part of your classes, and I just felt, I'm just going to get a real job. And insurance was in my family, so I got an insurance license and got licensed. And next thing I know, I'm wearing suits and driving around and talking about death to celebrities, and they're like, Lenny Kravitz is like, dude, don't ever call me again. So it was just, and it was just like, wait, but you're my friend. We grew up together. But it was one of those things, this because you went through insurance. When you go through training, they make you call all your family and friends. And that's a great way to get rid of dysfunctional family and friends, is to call them and try to sell them life insurance. But it shifted my world where I didn't know who I was anymore. I was completely beside myself, not being me. All of a sudden, I'm in this different environment where I have a kid on the way. I'm got to make commission sales. I'm going to meetings I've never thought of. I was in the gym all the time. So it was completely abnormal. And so that's when I met Jim Rohn through a circumstance in Atlanta for one of his seminars. And so he knew people because I was associated with my uncle and other people. And that's he asked me, he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, no, you're not. And then he was like, let's talk. And that's when he kind of whipped me around verbally and helped me understand about my thought process. It was based off of my past, and you're never going to get to your future when you're always looking at your past. You're so disenchanted with your future because you don't even look that way. You're always looking back at what you had and what you don't have, or what happened to you. It's like, how many times are you going to talk about what happened to you as if it's happening now?
Yes.
And that was a big slap in my face, because it's like, do you want me to hug you? I mean, I remember, you want me to hug you, kiss you, kick you? What do you want when you keep telling me the same thing? I'm like, well, I'm just telling you. He's like, I know. So it's like, so it just was a help. It just kind of gave me a little kick.
So embarrassing when he actually holds the mirror up. He's like, so what am I supposed to do with that?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And it's funny, as a quote, I don't know, it was a brain surgeon. He goes, I've done 100 brain surgeries, and I've never seen a bad childhood in any of them. And I think that's a very powerful statement, because it really is how you think. It has nothing to do with who you are now and what's happened to you. It's how you think now. It dictates who you are now, which dictates the only thing that is now.
Is now.
Yeah. And so that was kind of like a reality check, and it helped me a little bit because I was really on the edge, just not happy. But so that was how I met Jim Rohn.
And then after that, when was this? How long ago was this?
Oh, this was in the late 90s. So late 90s. Yeah. So that was in the late 90s. And then, I got out of insurance because Jim Rohn, I learned a lot from him. And so half of my business model was to go to businesses and work with businesses, not work with individuals per se, even though I did, but I focused on getting companies business. I wanted to be an affinity for them and work with them. And so I was really heavily involved with going to companies. And so I started finding partnerships with the recruiting firms and trying to network in that way. And one way I did that was say, let me talk to your team about mind, getting over yourself, getting over your past. And this is what I learned from Jim Rohn. And I ended up teaching seminars to companies, and that was how I got in. So I ended up becoming a trainer, even though I was doing sales, but I leveraged the comfort zone because I was in a ring. I was in entertainment. I had no problem being on stage.
Yes.
It was natural for me. It wasn't a problem. True story. I had to host an award show once. I accepted an award at the Soul Train Awards for Tracy Spencer one time. So I had no problem being in front and winging it. So I would get up and just wing it. And it was fun. And that's how I ended up getting into training and developing and getting my feet wet in that world. So, and then, through a whole bunch of other companies, Raytheon picked me up and did the same thing for them. And that's my world in a nutshell. So I've been doing a lot of training.
Funny how you never imagined you'd be a trainer.
Yeah, never thought of it. Never. I mean, I always did kickboxing training, but I never thought I mumble, and I've had a motorcycle accent, which means that I have a very, a slow lisp in my tone. So I have to be very conscious of it, but I would have never thought, because I had a mouthpiece my whole life in my mouth. So it's like,
yeah.
So it's definitely a funny thing to see that I'm actually a speaker, so it's just really hilarious.
What are you doing now? What's keeping you busy now? What are you working on? What are you thinking about?
Well, it circles back to what you were just talking about. The culture shifting exponentially, probably faster than ever before.
Yes.
Ever. We've never seen this happen, and it's impacting everything, including business, including I think the mental health of everyone, because social media plays on the subconscious like television did as well. But now social media is not just in your house and you go to your car and drive away. It's all around you all day long, and we're constantly scrolling. I recognize that from Hollywood. I know what the tricks are to the subconscious. Everything is subliminal. Nothing is logical, and everything is repeated becomes truth. So you got to ask yourself, what's being repeated every day? What's being put in front of you every day? And it's all about comparison and what you don't have. And I see that as a major distraction to feeling, I would say, happy, feeling fulfillment, all those kind of things that we say we want.
Mm-hmm.
But also the brain works in another way that people don't really want to acknowledge, is that when we start feeling a certain way, it becomes habitual in the brain. And so we start looking for ways to continue to feel the way we've always felt. So you get in a rut and you think that's just who I am, but it really isn't who you are. It's who you've decided to become. So my goal is to help people understand that by teaching how Generation Z is really shifting the culture, because they're tying in the mindset into business, which is a contrast to how business used to operate in the past. Yes. So I'm really trying to get leaders to understand that, but more importantly, not leaders, but the company itself, to kind of create I would say systems, operation, processes that open doors for ways to make these things work. You can't change it by walking in and say change. You have to have a temperament to know that this is things we need to bring up every time we're meeting, and every time we have a discussion, every time we hire somebody. We need to have some kind of training around the mindset or psychology of human nature, not just sales, but psychology of communication.
Yes,
not just HR, but neuro-linguistic programming. What words do we use that's going to help get to the best result versus infuse a more weak, or I would say victimized personality in this culture. So those are things I'm trying to get across.
What are you working on for Gen Z? What are you seeing? What is that kind of coaching that you're seeing is most needed, especially as they enter the workforce?
Yeah, it's no different than when a kid says, I'm leaving Nebraska to go to Hollywood to be a star. It's just, all of them see themselves as the next, not all of them, I take that back, but the next influencer making, $1 million selling a product, 3-step programs. I think that's it's real. I've seen it. I worked with a couple of people. One sold his company for 38 million, I think, and he was only 24 years old. But the thing is that what they don't have, and this is where it's challenging, is the resolve to continue something when it's not easy, because they grew up with social media and video games. And if they didn't like the video game, it didn't go for them. They just clicked reset. They didn't have to fight through it. They would just click reset and start over, or throw away the game. So they have a conditioned brain habitually to kind of have I don't like something, I'll just go to the next thing. So that commitment's not there unless there's a total buy-in to self. Secondly, they didn't play with kids as much as I did, or I would suggest, and you and I did growing up.
Yeah.
so they don't have what we call a mirror neuron in the brain that creates a form of empathy, so where they can feel for another person. That happens through personal interaction, like laughing,
Yes.
touching, connecting pheromones to each other. Those things create a sense of like, I know you, you and I are impacted by being around each other. Well, they didn't have that like you and I did. So their ability to really empathize with someone is going to impact customer service, going to impact sales, going to impact
Yeah.
businesses as a whole, because they don't care as much. Now, not all. So I'm just saying, as a
Yeah.
brush, these are things that take place with the Gen Z that impacts businesses. And so,
Hmm.
when you say, when you have a training program that is, I would say, legacy training, where you have people learning for a long period of time about something that they pretty much can figure out just because they know how, because they've been on social media, they played video games, they don't read instructions, they just figure it out.
Yes. Yeah, they figured out.
You've lost them because they want to just click reset. So it's just a matter of understanding that their brain's not going to be as engrossed in it as you and me. When I was, most companies develop training making sure they put all the content in, where nowadays people want to try something to figure it out versus hear about how it works and then go do it. And that's one of the biggest shifts.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and actually there's a lot of logic to it. I think some of the Gen Z stuff that where they've ended up,
Yeah.
is going to really turn us a little bit upside down and force us to rethink stuff. And some of it we will change. We will get a little bit more clever, and some stuff won't change.
Yeah.
Challenge is great, and
Yeah.
I think it's a generation that is going to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, it will. It actually already has. If you look at just from the sports industry to even milk sales, Generation Z doesn't drink half the milk that our generations did. 60% of Generation Z, 64% have no interest in sports. That's going to impact sales of baseball, football,
Whoa.
basketball. That's, it's just because they didn't play it. They played video games, So
Yeah,
it's like,
they had the iPhone, they had the Xbox, the PS,
right.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
You have there's a guy, I won't say his name because I didn't get permission, but there's a guy that he has a sports apparel, and he sells sports apparel online. He is making millions, and he has a membership base. He charges a dollar a month for a membership on his website. He has over 1.5 million members on his website. So he's getting 1.5 million a month, on his website, so I mean, these are things that are shifting the culture. A person can make a belt or make a Louis Vuitton. It doesn't have the value that, say, it used to have. If somebody is marketing themselves well enough and makes a belt, they're going to get a huge amount of followers and people buying that belt. And so they understand that sales is not about a product anymore. The product is the person. And so they become a person that people can relate to. And because I relate to you, I want to buy from you. And that's what's different about what they do now. And so that's the difference, is companies look like the I would say the enforcer, or the man, if you will. They look like kind of
very much
control.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to be controlled. So they leverage each other, and they have their own, I call it a beehive. It's like it's their own beehive, and they listen to one another. They don't watch the news. They watch the comments about the news from each other. They don't care what the news is saying. They care what their peers are saying.
The interpretation of it. Yeah. And
right.
then the culture.
Yeah. 100% culture. Culture is the new stream. And if companies don't understand that, and they just say, go sell my product, you're doing it, but you're missing half the opportunities there.
Yeah. I've got couple of interns lined up, some Gen Zers for this show, to help me produce the show and do a little bit better pre-production and a little back production, and market it a little bit. And so we're going to be working on this show together tomorrow. With a couple of the new ones. So we'll be producing this together tomorrow. We're doing a walkthrough. That's any awesome. Advice for me with my new intern, my new Gen Z crew? Any what's the top three pointers?
Just have fun. Let them, if they say something, let's try it. Everything's an effort, give it a shot. That's another thing, just, there's no harm in trying. Trying is probably the best way to achieve it versus making sure it's going to work. Just, let's go with it. I mean, think about it. If you bomb one show, it's okay. It's a story for another show. It's just have fun.
I love that. Yeah, you mess one up, and it's like, boom, you got a great story for the next show.
Exactly.
And that's been my coaching so far with the team is, here's some stuff we have to do. Like this
Mhm.
is non-negotiable. Like we got to produce the show and it's got to go up on here and there. And after
Yeah.
that, you want to put it on TikTok? Let's get a TikTok account. You want
Yeah.
to try to do it upside down backwards? You
Just have
know,
fun. Yeah.
let's have fun. Let's do this together. Let's spend 3 months together
Mhm.
and, have some fun. And you
Yeah.
guys will learn something. And when you walk away, you'll learn something. And I will have gotten some great help on the heavy lifting. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to be too emotional. I'm not going to tell you how to lift the milk up the hill, but you carry that milk. And you want to drag it with a rope. You want to
They
slingshot
probably
it.
don't even drink. They probably don't even drink milk. Ken.
Yeah, that's how I was saying milk. That's what I was like, like you got to take the milk up the hill. When I don't drink milk. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You just got to get it up the hill. I don't care how.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's as long as it's not broken, as long as it's still, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, I'm super excited for, a quasi boomer. I'm at the end of the boomer generation. I'm kind of caught between boomers and the X. And so, but I don't really identify as a boomer. I don't have the mentality, I don't feel like I'm
Yeah.
a boomer.
Yeah.
I feel
I
definitely
get
different.
Yeah,
But
but what you do. You're an observer too. You see how the world's shifting, and you just from your intro, you basically are. The hippie is back. We just call it influencer, but being a hippie
yeah,
is definitely back, and it's actually more infused in our culture now than ever before because metaphysics has now entered the workforce. It's like
yeah,
spirituality used to be separated from business. You go to church on Sunday, but then you work. But it's all infused on YouTube. It's nothing but metaphysics and mindset and mental state, and it's all that is part of sales, communications, any business model, fitness. It's all in there. It's intertwined. So that is the tree hugger, and so you have
love
tree
it.
hugging in business now. So those people don't wear ties hardly ever anymore, because
Yes.
it doesn't represent business. It only represents funeral or weddings, maybe at this point. So we have
Yeah,
to,
maybe.
yeah, and we have to really consider that the shift has happened already. It's just who's going to catch up and pay attention to it.
Yeah, it's when we were talking before we started, you were sharing the idea of writing a letter to yourself. That
Mm.
you had gone through this kind of great little therapy thing to do, or just self development, and to write that letter from God to you, and just say, hey, the content you talked about, observing you and seeing what that these are the things you're doing really good. These are I really got a lot of respect. I just trying to paraphrase it.
Yeah,
But
that's part of my coaching when I do coaching, especially with people that have a lot of trauma and went through a
yeah,
lot, and their identity is based off of what they've been through. And I'm not discrediting what people go through. We all go through things and they're traumatic. But what's
yeah.
ironic is that none of us have any different feelings than the other. A feeling of sadness in Thailand is the same feeling of sadness here. It's just the reason
Mm,
for it is different, right? So that's one thing that makes us all the same is the fact that we all have the same feelings. So trauma is, I don't even call it trauma, because trauma for a military vet is completely different than trauma for someone who just, had a bad marriage or a bad childhood. They were
right.
separated, they didn't see their dad. So, I really I'm ginger about like making that the same. But what I get into that therapy is to understand that everything happens through you and for you, not to you. When you can really understand that by taking your conscious out of the picture and let your subconscious speak for you. And we don't do that enough. We don't take time to let our subconscious really get quiet and give us the answers. We try to look for it from a very tangible, dense way.
Yes, yes.
By doing this, you say, whatever, if it's God, if it's spirit, if it's, Allah, whatever it might be to you, just pretend. And we were talking about how when in the days when I was younger, you get a letter in the mail from somebody, you're like, oh, that means something, because they took time to write you a letter.
Yeah, your
And
name's on it.
yeah, and you open it up and you start reading it. So writing, hey, say, hi, Ken, this is God. I'm writing this to you because I just want to let you know I've seen what you've been through your whole life. And then start journaling what you've been through, whatever comes to mind. When I saw
Yes.
you go through this, I understood why. I want you to know why this happened to you. I let this happen, and I wanted this to happen because can you see how? Dot dot dot. And I was sharing with you the book that I
So
wrote.
powerful.
Yeah, and when I wrote the book, I just forgot the name of the book. It's me and a bunch of partners from Mastermind. Resilience. It was resilience. It was the story I wrote was about my father pulling a shotgun on me because I ditched school, and he was drunk, and he got the letter in the mail. It wasn't like yet internet then, so he got a letter in the mail, and he came in my room with a sawed-off shotgun and put it to my head and said he was going to shoot me. And I was like, well, if you shoot me, I'll shoot you back. I mean, that was a stupid comment, but you're
Well, you're a boy. You're 6. You're, I don't know, 14 or something. 60 or 16 at the time. Yeah,
really,
yeah. That's what I would say.
yeah. And so anyway, he's I can smell his breath. He was drunk. He was, his eyes were glossy, and he was, and he caught himself, and he started trying to tell me how, important school is, but it meant nothing at this point. So, but I was really distraught after that, and it was never. I've been shot at before. I've been stabbed. By that time, I've had nothing but gang violence around my growing up. But at that moment, I wanted to kill myself because I wanted him to find me dead. I wanted him to feel guilty.
You wanted to get back to him.
I wanted to get back to him. So I went into his room to get the shotgun because he had fallen asleep, and I noticed the safety wasn't on, and it was loaded. And so I was playing with the gun, and I was like, I'm just going to have him find me. And so it was the weirdest thing, because I don't want to get religious here, but it was a Friday night, and there was songs on the radio that, in those days, I don't know if you remember the Friday night songs. There was like lovemaking songs, like romantic, like, if you go out on a date and there's a radio, you have like nice, slow lovemaking songs.
Yes. Yeah. I totally, they would play by themes, right? At certain times.
So that was on slow songs. I was feeling sad, so I was listening to sad songs, which are love songs, but they're sad songs if you're sad. So all of a sudden,
but hold on, set the stage. You're listening to love songs, holding a loaded sawed-off shotgun, contemplating blowing your dad's head off.
Yeah, my head.
Okay.
Yeah, and then,
or yours, whatever is going to happen.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, a song comes on by the Commodores called "Jesus Is Love," and I'm like, now who wants to have a romantic night with a girl with that on, right? So,
I don't think that was meant for them.
Yeah, it wasn't meant for them. And so I literally broke down in tears and stuff. And I wrote that out in this letter to me from God. And then subconsciously it came to me, and I just wrote it like it was natural. Do you know why I wanted that to happen through you? Because that's the day you decided not to be a victim to your childhood or to your family or to your history or to your life. That's the day you decided to become a fighter. You remember you went to the gym and went to a boxing gym all alone, didn't tell anybody, said, I want to take up boxing lessons. I want to learn how to fight. Do you remember that's the day you said, no longer I'll let people take advantage of me, and I'm going to start fighting back? And that's because that happened to you. Do you realize you wouldn't know your wife now because you started teaching kickboxing and you met her in the gym that you were already professional at doing, only because that happened to you? Now you have your sons, Jordan and Justin, and you have a beautiful daughter. And it was like, and I was writing this down, and it changed that concept of something happening to me to it had to happen through me so I can have the things that are supposed to be for me. And that is why I say people to write this, and it can go on. You can finish it. You can go back and put more in it. But I told you mine started at like 12 to 16 pages. It's like over 100 pages now, because it just was something that I continually walked through.
What a journal.
It became an amazing journal for me. And it just helped me understand that just nothing is ever happening to me. And it helped me have power with anything I'm feeling. It's not about, I might feel sad, I might get frustrated, but I know I'm going to get through it, because it's going to give me something to look back on and say, where did I get the strength out of that struggle? And that's what I try to get people to do now.
I was having some, excuse me. So I'm working on a contract for a client, and project, and we've agreed to the project and everything. We get down to the how to make it happen, and it's overseas, so it's a bit complicated. And it just got more like, by the time I was getting into this thing, it was just like, I'm not even sure this can happen. This is just so like, and the complexity they're adding to it is just like mind-boggling, and there's it's for different reasons, all good reasons, and it's like, this is so painful. I'm just like, I almost like, this isn't even worth it. Like, this is going to get my anxiety level so high that I'm not even going to enjoy doing the work. And there's no way it's enough money for what I'm doing with that. And then I had another friend kind of, as I was talking to him, he said, hey, if you ever have any, I have an idea. I've got a business there, so anyway, if you're doing your thing, if you want to run it through me, let me know and we can run it through my company. And I was like, oh, that's why that happened. Okay. I'm not, it's not supposed to happen through, and I don't know why. Like, it shouldn't happen over there for a reason. It's supposed to come over here.
Yeah.
And and that will be shown to me or evident eventually. I'll understand. But I'm getting this clue now. So I think for listeners, this is hard stuff to hear, and sometimes, to understand how it works. But as you get your head around it, and you start to take that step back, I know it's frustrating and everything. It's not happening for me. It's not happening for me. Yeah. And because there's something else, you're pushing up the wrong tree. You're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is that we take it internally. We think there's something wrong with us, or we have some demand on I say the universe, not to sound spiritual, but we have some kind of demand that, we can be entertained by other people's dramas, but don't put it on me. And I tell people this all the time. It's like, there's no one in the Bible or any spiritual leader that ever had a good life. If you think about it, there's no such thing as this good life. You think it's all about what's in here and what's in here.
It's interesting. Yeah.
A good life, regardless of what's happening in the dense world that you're in. And that's the challenge that we're faced with, because social media is telling us we should have a good life. You should not be working 9 to 5. You should be happy. And it goes, yeah, you're right. I am happy, not because you're saying it, and not because I should be, but because I am. And that's it. And it's just knowing that you don't need somebody else to tell you these things, that it's you internally need to be able to have a conversation with yourself. That's why I'm writing a book called Interview Itself.
Okay. Tell us about that.
It's kind of like, and I only do this because enough people said you need to write down your story. So it's hard to write down my history because I have such a convoluted one, but kind of walk through growing up in Hollywood, being around celebrities, then getting into entertainment as a talent agent and working in that, and then all the dysfunction. And people don't know this. I'm African American, but I look Hispanic. And so growing up in an all Black community, my whole family, my mother's side, was African American. And is, not just was. I should clarify that.
Yeah. They voted against it.
Yeah, and then looking like Ricky Ricardo growing up when everyone else did not. There was a big racial divide that I had to deal with as well, that maybe a lot of people don't empathize with, but there is, and was, I should say, a big disconnect between light-skinned Blacks versus darker.
You're not even, you don't fit anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't fit anywhere. So I became very recluse and separated and just became a loner per se. And so, then now looking at me coaching people and teaching seminars and all the things that I've been able to do on the other side in I would say the corporate world, it's a transition. So what did I do? I kind of self-therapize a lot. And so those modalities I developed became things that I use in clients now. So that's why the book starts with my history. And then you get to assess what traumas, or dramas, I call them dramas, not traumas, that you feel like I had, and how do you think that impacted me as an individual? And you get to choose, and then say that becomes my filter in life. So now my filter is based off of my past. So how do you change that? So you got to interview yourself to kind of understand how to change yourself. And so that's kind of what I did in the book.
I love it. And you're cooking that now.
Yes, and then it actually brought up a whole new real secrecy for me, because being a talent agent and being recluse, I'm also very reserved. I know it doesn't sound like I'm talking to you, but I don't really like to. I don't want to put it all out there, if you will. I'm very guarded in some ways, and I realize I'm writing something like, I don't know if I want to put that out there, So I've had a lot of internal pull and push thing going on, so it's been fun though.
And I think that there's a discovery process in writing, as you're going through it, and I think how you start and just finding. I think I have found. I'm on trying the second book, and I think it's finding your voice.
Yeah.
For me, has been the experience is when I find the voice from which I want to speak, because the ideas are there, right? It's how to package it for the reader, and I think for you, it's you've got the voice. It's going to be you, but how to articulate that voice, man. What do you want to what do you want to that's
because everything is my personality. I go and I can tell you how everything's tied together versus having it very linear and kind of just like siloed. I get into I show how all of it's connected, and I gotta make it more simple to say, so
Yeah, my first book. So I was sharing before. We're laughing because as soon as you said you wrote a letter from God. So I wrote letters to God in my
Mm.
first book. It was letters
Oh,
to God, and it was just checking up my understanding. I had solved a few things. I had figured out the puzzles. So I was just writing letters to God, letting him know I figured it out. And God was like, "Sure, sure, sure, you have.
sure.
Here's here's another idea. Why don't you?" So what ended up happening? I wrote the book, and then the way the universe works, I ended up. So I wrote letters to God and said, I figured it out. And said, well, maybe not. Why don't you drive around the country and ask people?
Hmm.
And so I ended up on a podcast driving around the country with a big jar of questions from a Dear God book, asking people, letting them pull these questions out of a jar and share their life story.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah,
That's
it was a wild one, and it was one of those that definitely happened to me.
Mhm.
There's no through me for me on this one. It
Yeah.
was it
But
was
that's something that not many people could ever say they've done. So that definitely makes you an experience that
yeah.
is unique to the majority of the population. So that's actually a really cool story.
It was a crazy idea that just no one was ever brave enough to grab me by the hair and stop me.
Yeah.
Not that they would have been able to, because I was pretty set on pretty set on the idea. It
Yeah.
had come, it. And the best part is I can't even, Julian. I have no idea ultimately where all the ideas came together.
Hmm.
Couldn't tell you. I could tell you a lot about the book. I know like how this happened and this happened and those ideas came, but how that stuff came together as an idea escapes
Well,
me.
then that means it's meant to be. That's what I'm saying. The subconscious is the power. That's where the power lies, is in our subconscious. But it's
Yeah.
been dormant because we are so busy with the conscious. I actually have an exercise with clients. I have them do it.
Yeah.
It's called No So 24, and I ask people for one day, 24 hours, go with no social media, no TV, no radio, nothing. Just pretend you're in an Aquarian society that has no electronics whatsoever. And if you're going to listen to anything, make it classical or jazz, but no words, no type
Love
of
it.
influence from any vocabulary from anybody else. And if you can do it one day a week and 3 days a month, it will change the way you see the world. You'll start recognizing the fear factors that are with almost
Yes.
everything, and how it changes the chemical in your brain, and how it filters your reality, and how it changes how you see your life and how you see other people. And we don't realize it, how much we're influenced by that. And working with Raytheon, working with the entertainment industry, working in marketing, it's almost like it's a game, because it literally is a game. I can
It's a
make you
game.
believe something over and over and over if I repeat it over and over. I can make you know somebody just by the tone of something. I can say ho ho ho. It can sound like a green giant from the peas, or it can sound ho
Yeah.
ho ho from Santa Claus. Tone has meaning, and so does the words, and so does the repetitiveness of things. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and that's where we lose. People don't realize it, how much they're controlled. And I'm not trying to get red pilled here, but it's really important that people start taking ownership of it. And I think that's
I
one of the things that are changing. I think Gen Z, they, as soon as they feel like you're trying to control them, that's when they say, "Look, I'm not part of that." That they're controlled about not being controlled. So that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah. It is an interesting thing when I was writing the book, something for some reason, when I was started really sitting down and at some point I turned off all music with words.
Let's
I
see.
think for probably a year and a half, I
Wow,
didn't listen to a song. Uh,
that's amazing.
I'm some sort of freak on YouTube Music. I would be
Mhm.
some sort of like bananas an anomaly in their algorithm, because I'm the guy that's played Bach cello 7,432 times on repeat.
It does something to your brain, though. It's so cool. I mean, that's what I mean. You're the anomaly. You and our kindred spirits in that. I mean, I think that's amazing, because then it's like not eating sugar for a week and then tasting a cupcake and tasting chemicals. It
You
just, you're like, whoa, it's different.
this and the social, and then you come back to words. So
Hmm.
it's interesting. I got in the van, I drove, and I was sucked in. So I got back to words
Hmm.
and music, and it comforted me
Hmm.
and it made me feel better, even though I was in a little bit of pain. I don't know
Hmm.
if that makes sense, and
Yeah,
a little bit lost.
right.
Um, and then I realized that probably 90% of the songs that I listened to were absolutely poison for my brain.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to people that use drugs. I mean, it doesn't take away the pain. It just numbs it, So it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
distracts you from it. It's just, anything that can distract us from pain it's not like it's bad for us per se, but if you don't ever address the pain, you're
yeah.
just prolonging the pain. So it's okay and I listen to music occasionally. I was telling my wife the other day, I want to go to Vegas and go dancing and change our names to Thaddeus Wealth and Chandelier and just have fun, right? Just dance, just go play, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's a thing where when you do it, it's becoming your habit and you don't ever take step and go, what am I repeating out loud? What am I singing out loud?
Yes,
What am I
yes.
saying out loud? Knowing that the words you use have impact. Your subconscious reacts to everything you say. So it's very important to know that you're controlling everything. The difference is it doesn't happen overnight like an Advil. It doesn't happen like in an hour.
Right, yes.
But it actually is working on you continuously. So the goal is to change that narrative. And so people say I'm stupid, or they say things like that. It's like,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course, you're going to look for ways you can validate that now, and then it's just going to keep enforcing those feelings.
Yeah.
So that's now you've created a whole different reality than it's really out there because you chose to keep saying that to yourself. So that's, I can't help everyone, but it's just I know that there's an opportunity for those who know that they have been in a rut, that maybe it's time to pick up a different weapon and play this game and see where it goes.
Anything coming up? Any speaking engagements or any consulting stuff
Yeah,
that's kind of occupying your brain right now?
Yes, I'm actually speaking for the SHRM in Wyoming in September. I'm speaking at I hate to say it, I don't know the name. It's a teachers conference. I'm speaking at a generational communication in August.
Oh,
That's going to
lovely.
be like 2,000 teachers in Wyoming. My first opinion is, do I blend? I don't think so. But it's just one of those, that's the first thing that came to mind. It's like, I'm going to Wyoming to teach. That's going to be awesome. So I'm going to have fun there because
Are they they're paying you?
Yeah, they're paying me. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing, right? Like you're going to get to speak and they're going to hear you, listen to you,
Yeah.
and they're going to write you. I mean,
yeah, it's going to be fun, but it goes back to my first, no matter what, I'm just being very transparent. It always goes back to that first. And it's like, because I grew up with that type of environment,
yeah.
you're always comparing yourself outwardly to your environment. I never fit into the environment. So everywhere I go, my first inclination is, do I fit in here? But I say this with love. I say this with love to everyone. Your first thought is never the problem. It's the secondary thought you're responsible for. I can't change that cellular memory, and I can't take away that I have that happen to the point where it becomes an instinct for me to think about that. But do I keep riding that conversation in my head?
Or you just you just got to cut it out, right? Like that's wrong.
I blend because they want me there, so obviously I'm supposed to be there. That's the end of it. So
that's it.
That's it. And so what happens is, even when I got in a lot of trouble when DEI became like a big popular thing here in the country. And basically I said, there's no such thing as DEI. It's just you're creating a problem that you can't fix because you can't make people think anything. All you can do is be something and let them discover it. That's it. And so it's really fascinating when you try to make people think. It's like no one ever crossed a picket line because you force them. You need to be on my side. Okay, you change my mind. It doesn't work that way.
Yep. What do you know?
Yeah. So I think it's ironic that we're so smart that we're stupid at times. It's like, really? I mean, you're going to force people to think a certain way? We're just making them aware. No, you're not. If they're forced to go to a session, they're not learning anything. They're actually pretending to learn to get you off of their back. That's not genuine desire to know anything. So the goal is to be something, and you help them discover it by you being it. If you're African American and you feel people are racist, then if you get mad, then all you do is prove their point, because they're not saying you're mad because I thought you're a racist. I'm always going to look at myself in the best interest. So it's going to be, you're the one with the problem. So it's understanding human nature first and understanding what is versus what I feel. And so, but the secondary thought is important. So that's the point we have control over. So I give people grace, even if they are racist, I don't know and don't care. My focus is my secondary thought matters, and that's it.
Yeah, and you can't. And the best part is that it doesn't matter what other people think.
Doesn't matter. I can't change them, and I'm not here to do so. So
I,
it's their journey.
you be, it's like when you get bad drivers, right? You get a driver in front of you, and they're not behaving in a way that you would consider good driving,
Yeah.
and you might honk at them or scream at them. And I used to ride with people, and I'm like, there's like a million bad drivers. I mean, you can't fix them all,
Right.
and you
Unless you know
can't
who
even
I'm going to look for.
and
There's
you
a job
probably
for
can't
you.
even fix that one. Like, you can't even fix that one. So just take a
Yeah.
deep breath and chill, because
Yeah. Exactly.
there's just too many out. You're going to get yourself up into a dander.
It's so
And
true. So true.
you
Yeah.
can't fix them all. And so, there's plenty of racists out there on the spectrum. There's a little bell curve, and they're out there in the corner.
Yeah.
And,
And that's the whole point of psychology, though. I mean, media and marketing is all telling you about problems that can't be fixed and make you frustrated about it. And it's like if everyone just focused on their own home and focused what's right underneath their feet, there's no argument. It just really isn't. So I think it goes back to understanding you are the power to control your life. That's it.
yes.
And when you are being people are telling you need to be concerned about other people's lives and fix them, that's an uphill battle that you shouldn't take, because you're deflecting from you and focusing on outward things and never really looking at what you need to work on. And I think that's where we sell things on that level. Buy this so you can be.
Yes.
It's just bizarre. I was just asked this just before this call. One of my clients asked me, "How did you get so intuitive to environment?" I said, in my letter to God, you got beat up. He wrote, my subconscious. I let you get beat up, and you got stabbed, you got chased, you got robbed. All those things happened to you. And do you remember the thought that came to your mind one day when you stopped getting beat up? What was the first thing that came to mind? And I remember, and it was funny, I was like, and all of a sudden it just came to me. I remember walking through the street, and I'm like, how come the guy that's beating me up is never getting beat up? How come he's comfortable sitting in the hood waiting for me, but no one's bothering him? Because he believes this is his environment. This is where he's supposed to be. This is his street. And because he believes he belongs there, no one messes with him. I'm walking around like I don't belong here. I'm in trouble. So my environment dictated my feelings, and my feelings made me the sheep and the lion.
You become the victim.
So in that moment, that was a part of you that when you got into the ring, you remembered that. And that's when you started swinging back. And so that became but that part of me is still there. When I walked the street,
Yes.
I was very like Terminator. I was looking around and sizing up things. I can see through bushes, man. I had X-ray vision. I knew if there was somebody hiding in a bush, even though you couldn't see one part of their body. I just knew it because the way the tree moved, it was like very, very stealth-like, Batman-like kind of personality. And so now everywhere I go, I'm kind of like, that's still part of me. And so NLP, when I started learning NLP, it became very natural for me to look at behavior over words and look at body language over words. It was like NLP just flowed in like a
NLP,
yeah. So I've been doing that since I met Jim Rohn. I've been using NLP in business and training, and it's been very beneficial so far. So it works.
Well, I promised I wouldn't wait till the end to ask you, but how do people find you?
And then you can just, juliansado.com or pivottochange.com or, LinkedIn, Julian Sado. And I'm pretty much, I don't use a lot of the other social medias as much, but that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I'm supposed to, my son keeps telling me I need to use Instagram more, but I haven't used it very much, or TikTok. So, but that's pretty much it. LinkedIn is pretty much the best way. And then just go to juliansado.com or Pivot to Change.
I love that. You're not on TikTok every day, twice a day, posting.
No. It's funny. I was for a minute. I mean, I was getting a little stupid on it, but I caught myself and I was like, okay, stop. I had to force myself. And
it's a good algorithm.
I broke away. I kicked the habit. But that whole scrolling up thing is really the key. It makes you feel like you got to get to the end. So it makes subconsciously you're trying to get.
You're going to get to the end.
Yeah, it's like the whole purpose is the way the whole social media thing about scrolling up. There's a psychology to that. It's just you think there's a bottom and you want to get to the bottom, so you keep hitting all right, I'm gonna get to the bottom. This is the last one. This is the last one. And you repeat that, and so that's the whole purpose.
Just one more. Just one more.
Is all it is, and one more 2 hours later, right? And that's the whole the whole trick.
Julian, I feel like we could talk for about 6 hours.
Yeah, we could.
Like
But
I
we
said, we're kind of kindred spirits. Well, and and not too long from now, we're going to get to watch a couple of geriatrics get on stage and pontiff and make their best make their best.
It makes me want to do stuff like I would love to take politicians' speeches and use NLP to share with people how that is so manipulative, what it does to you, what you're hearing, and how it's conditioned to make you hate either one or love the other or like the other or tolerate the other, whatever you want to call it. But both sides are guilty of mind manipulation using NLP, behavioral science, and psychology. And their speechwriters are infamous for understanding human nature. And it's been something that you learn in marketing. You learn psychology of human nature and behavior. And so it's just understanding that everything is a ruse. Nothing is real. Everything is scripted, and everything is, even now, like the protesters that were out, there's paid protesters. There's actually a website you can become a paid protester and get paid over $100 a day to go and protest someplace. And then you have the news go out there and say all these protesters are out doing this, and never acknowledging that 90% of those people are paid to do it because they don't have real jobs. That's the job they have. It's like the whole world is just a stage show.
It's theater right now.
Yeah, it's just all theater. And so it's interesting to have this happen because all you can do is watch it and go, wow, and so it's definitely interesting to see how it's going to turn out.
They jack those emotions with the, those videos and those images. It gets, the one side saying, yay, and it gets the other side going, burn them. It's just,
it's crazy. It's insane.
I'm with you though, Julian. I love watching it because I can step back. I'm not emotional about it. And I'm able to see through the game. And like you said, it's obvious as protesters don't know what they're doing, or there's, the 5 of them are the organizers and they're getting $200 a day. That's why they look smart. And the other ones are really rejects and they're getting, the $50 a day.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun to watch, but yeah, we'll see what happens. And love to stay in touch. I mean, you're a great guy. I love talking to you. Right, we could talk forever, dude. Where are you located? Where are you living?
I'm temporarily in Pensacola, Florida. Yeah. So I'm hanging out here, working on the book, working on the next book, Dear Leaders, and I've got a client in Asia that looks like I'll go there for a bit, and maybe come right back. But I think I'll try to find some more work and spend some time there.
Okay. We almost moved to Sarasota. We came real close, but our grandbaby moved back to Dallas, so we're still in Dallas. So my wife's like, I want to be with grandbaby, so we're here. So that's where we're at.
I did when I paused the jar after I took a break, and I spent about 8 weeks or 10 weeks just showed up at my daughter's house and said, that's it. I'm hanging out with the grandkids, man. You kick me out when it's time, when you absolutely can't stand me anymore, you kick me out. Awesome. And just waking up at, best moment is laying in bed. It's about 6 a.m. and I could just hear my one granddaughter. She's 4. She wakes up and I just hear that pitter patter on the wood floor, bum, 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 bum. And just, man, it takes you straight back to being a dad. Those moments, when you didn't really even completely have any appreciation for.
Isn't that right? So true. So true.
No appreciation for what you're doing. And, and I look at them and they're like, they're but at the end of the day, they're destroyed. They're battle worn. They've been putting up with the kids all, 4 a.m. or whatever. The kid wakes up, someone's puking, someone's peeing in the bed, where the baby's waking up, teething. So, by 9 o'clock at night, they're on the couch. They're, they have their celebratory 1 beer a night. They're the cutest couple ever. They have a beer and that's a little ice cream. And, they're just reflecting on the day. And I realize, and I just tell them all the time, you'll forget all this. You won't remember these times. You'll have the good memories, but you won't remember cleaning, doing laundry at 2 a.m. You'll forget all that stuff.
Yeah.
The brain is powerful.
It is. And it's so awesome. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, so we have a lot in common that way. So that's awesome. So
that's great. I finally got my grandson. I'm a girl dad, and then we had two granddaughters, and then I got my grandson last year.
Oh, congratulations! So I only have one, and
5 is great. 4 is great. 5's a great age.
Yeah, it's awesome. So she's spoiled to death, and it's not gonna get any better for the most. So it's all downhill.
Oh,
So I want going forward. Every time she gets here, she's like, I want, like, okay. So we'll go get. So it's just how it is with her. So you're
oh
just
man,
so it's
Julian,
awesome.
yeah, love it. Hang around for 20 seconds, and I'll see you on the other side.
Okay, sounds
Uh,
good. Thanks so much.
Thanks everybody for listening and supporting mental health today. Share the episode if you're still with us on the audio, and also if you're on audio, drop down on iTunes or Spotify, iHeart. Give us a rating and leave some comment. Be really great. We appreciate them, and I read all of them and typically respond somewhere. Julian, thanks again so much. See you in 20.
All right, it's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, loose, baby.
But we're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals at Public Glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glass blowing. Yeah, we're gonna go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.